And I think it really gets back to what we had talked about earlier. If we have this problem or opportunity we want to create, let's not stand around and just talk about it for a long time. We need to take action because every day is an opportunity to make an impact with our students. And so, I'm never one to sit back and hey, let's plan a course that's going to impact students in 2 years when we can impact them next year, or we can impact them this next semester.
That's Shane Hotchkiss, superintendent of the Bermudian Springs School District, here to ask why wait? If we can change the way we do things, then let's do it.
How do you navigate change? It's a question we think about often, and one that today's world expects us to be comfortable with. The challenge, however, is where do you begin? And how do you develop the mindset and skills to be successful? You're listening to Designing Schools, and I'm your host, Dr. Saba Kidwai, educator, researcher, and storyteller. Join me each week for stories and strategies that bridge the gap between research and practice, as together we explore how might we design schools.
A decade ago, Daniel Pink wrote the book Drive, The Surprising Truth About What Motivates Us. He shared that in today's workplaces that require creativity and innovation, people thrive in an environment that fosters autonomy, mastery, and purpose. While many people enjoy and want flexible work environments, that autonomy requires us to have a strong culture of shared values, norms, behavior, systems, and tools that will allow everyone to be successful as self-directed individuals. I've been thinking a lot lately about how conversations about the future of work are often reserved for how we prepare students. We rarely step back and re-examine what work could look like for the adults within school organizations. Especially now that we've experienced what working remotely can look like, we really have an opportunity to explore the best of both worlds. What opportunities exist for how we use our time and our resources? And with this topic on my mind, and with many leaving the teaching profession, I'm so glad to have Shane join me today. He has a bold vision for his district, and he models taking initiative and leads a culture of innovation by creating a culture of empathy. I begin by asking Shane to share how he's seen his role as a leader evolve over the past decade.
So this is currently my 11th year as superintendent. And in dog years, it's 77. It's a long time. It breaks the norm with superintendent longevity, but I love it. I'm in a great community and a great school district with great kids. And so that drives me to be the best that I can be for them. And so over time, there have been so many things that have happened in education during that tenure. I was a former elementary teacher. I taught reading in a middle school. I was a reading specialist, elementary principal. So that's the background to get me to the superintendency. And I've really seen things evolved in public schools over that same amount of time. And a few things that I've had to change during that time have really made a difference for me, and I hope has made a difference in the district. And the first, I think, is we've had to become extremely resourceful in just how we look at our infrastructure, how we look at the human capital in school districts. And I'll give you a few examples. When we have a position opening, and this is related to budget. So I've been asked every time some position comes open, we always have to ask ourselves, do we need this position? And over time, we've not only taken that approach, we've looked at what other problems do we have in the district that this opportunity may help us solve. And so that has allowed us to move people around the district to serve in different capacities based on their strengths that actually solve a need that we have. I was sharing earlier, we've moved administrators to different roles based on the needs that we have. We've moved teachers between buildings, between programs, just because they have a skill and a talent that really is needed somewhere else. And so we've had to be quite resourceful in what we do and how we use people. And, it's led to this idea that we've never just arrived and just become settled in what we do. We've got to be resourceful in using the resources that we have to the best of our ability. And I always liken it, and I don't talk about it often, but played baseball in college and been involved in the game for a long time, and I enjoy coaching. And so I look at my role now as a coach, and it's my job to look at our team, and our team is our staff, and put us in the best position to be successful. And sometimes that means moving people to different areas to strengthen our team. And I've taken that approach from my old coaching background to apply to the superintendency today. And with that, in the same breath, you got to be a creative problem solver. Public schools today, with the resources that we have, with the challenges that we have to be creative. And that's what we want our students to be. That's what we want our staff to be. And then we as leaders need to be creative and think differently in, just trying to tackle some of the challenges that we have. And to be quite honest, erase some of the obstacles that get in the way of our students and our staff from being the best that they can be. And I've really seen those over time have just changed. And I think as a leader today, we have to be nimble enough to make those adaptations along the way. And I always use this analogy. When you're running an organization, and it's a big organization, it's like steering a cruise ship. And a cruise ship doesn't really turn very quickly. It's a slow, methodical process. And I have seen education require that ship to turn much more quickly and respond to things that are in front of us. And I'm really proud of the work that we've done. I'm really proud of the organization and the community. And I think that we've done a great job in doing that. And that has just been an adaptation we've had to make over time.
Listening to Shane, I want to take a moment to pause and have you think about, when was the last time you had an opportunity to enhance your creative problem-solving skills? When was the last time you had an opportunity to personalize your own learning? We're so often fixated on how to help students develop these skills that we rarely pause to examine what we as adults need so that we're better positioned to support the students in our care. So I asked Shane, what keeps him creative?
I don't think it's just me. It's really a team of people, but it's a mindset that we have. And, I really enjoyed the challenge of trying to solve really challenging problems and critical issues. And so that requires you to be creative. And so for me, it's just sitting back and taking in, and again, the advantage of being here so long is I've gotten a lot of history, and I understand history that allows you to, I think, make some creative adaptations a little bit quicker because you've got the context, you've built relationships with people. It's hard to be honest with you. That's just how I'm built. I don't really think about it. I just, I look at the challenges that are in front of us and just pose the question, all right, what are we going to do about it? And later on with one of the questions that we had talked about is something to discuss is this idea that at times people, I believe, tend to stand around and admire a problem. So you look at something, you'll talk about it, you'll stare at it from many different angles, but at the end of the day, what are we doing about it? And so I've just been a believer in when I started, and there were just conversations happening in the district for years. And I've just taken the approach, let's not stand around and admire a problem, let's do something about it. And if we're not going to do anything about it, let's move on to something else. And that becomes actionable steps. And one of our teachers came up with that phrase about standing around and admiring a problem. And I use it all the time because I think sometimes we do that. And we do that because we're not quite sure what to do. And I just think if you do that too long, some negative things can happen. And so I have just used that approach. I don't think that that's creative or innovative, but that really fosters the sense of urgency to respond and think about, okay, how can we solve that problem? And to me, it's keeping an open mind, like anything's on the table. So as soon as somebody comes in and says, well, we can't do that, I'll immediately ask, why? Well, why can't we? Well, you may not be able to, but I at least want to give the conversation a chance. And I'm guilty sometimes too, like, oh, we can't do that. It's that old, well, that we've always done it this way type of thing. And so whether that's creative or innovative to solve things, I'm inquisitive. I want people to be inquisitive. I want people to ask why. I want people to think of any and all possibilities. And some of them may be eliminated pretty quickly, but some of them may not. And I think at the end of the day, when you do that, good things happen.
One of my favorite questions to reflect on and ask others is, why are you the way you are? It's the classic Derek Sivers challenge. What's obvious to you is amazing to others. Yet so often we don't recognize our own strengths, our own gifts, and what makes us unique. It's one of the reasons I advocate for everyone taking a strengths assessment, and I have two favorites that I share. The first is free, and it's called the Spark Type by Jonathan Fields. The second is a paid option, and it's the Clifton Strengths by Gallup. Not only do these assessments provide you with insights into what energizes you and what your strengths are, but it gives you the language to be able to articulate that to others. It allows you to be more self-aware about what energizes you and what depletes you. As leaders, opening the door to this conversation with your teams is a powerful experience that can really build a strong culture of safety, trust, and collaboration. Having insights about our own thinking and behavior patterns allows us to better understand how we can work better together. I asked Shane what strategies he utilizes to encourage creativity and risk-taking amongst his faculty and his teams.
I think first you have to model it. And so I think through the approach I shared, I try to model and our team tries to model it day in and day out. And that's important before I think you can have explicit conversation about encouraging people to take risks if you've been doing it day in and day out. And so, and I've just even found, and I'll give you a really concrete example of the taking risks, something we've done and some of the questions. So a few years ago, I kept getting hit with, man, I'm in service days. I'm tired of sitting around getting training on things that really aren't pertinent to me. I don't like it. It just had a bad connotation. And so I remember talking with some leadership of our teachers, and I said, okay, what do you want to call it? And they kind of looked at me and I'm like, well, we'll call it anything that you want. I don't want to be the name to be a barrier to what we're trying to accomplish. And they still kind of looked at me. I'm like, what do you want to call it? And so we came up with, we're just going to call professional development. Like, okay, now how about this? We talk about personalization for kids. What if we do that for staff? And again, you kind of, look at you and it led to a conversation about the development of personal learning plans for every professional staff member in the district. And the goal is, what is it that you want to learn about professionally? And how's that going to impact kids? And we're going to gear all professional development around you and what it is that you want to learn and grow. And to me, that wipes away the barrier of, oh my gosh, this doesn't relate to me. And I got this, are you serious? And I'm like, well, yeah. So we spent a lot of time putting together just the framework and the planning and this idea. And still, once we had it, we shared with everybody, here's what we're going to do. We provided support. People would come up and say, are you really serious? You're actually going to do this? And a lot of people were saying, no, I don't believe you. You're going to give us this time through the course of the year. And we still get, and it's several years that people still really question and doubt this, I think, a creative, innovative idea to meet the needs of staff, and the students are the beneficiary of that. I still get that. And so year after year, we follow through on that. We just had a recent conversation about how we can revamp just the process a little bit. It's one of those things that you hold near and dear, and this is it. And it goes back to the history behind how we got to this. We call it PLPs with our staff members. And what I found is some people struggle with the freedom of choice and want to be guided, while you have others like the freedom. And so we've learned that we've got to be nimble enough to keep these personalized learning plans for many individuals, but yet provide enough support for people who need, enough support. So we, high school course, the social studies department, they got together and we're just talking about opportunities they would like to create for kids. And out of it came a new course called Global Citizenship. And it really was the development of ideas that our teachers had of what's been missing with kids. And we talk a lot about being good citizens. We are a district that has welcomed in the Medal of Honor winners. We've had them here. And so this idea of character and citizenship has been important. And so this course evolved out of that. And so over time, you saw these teachers getting together, planning out content, looking at standards. How can we package this and do a better job with it? And I saw this course evolve. And it's been amazing. One, it was amazing to see the collaboration. And it was a lot of work, far more hours than we were able to provide. But because it was something they were passionate about, that connected to standards, that connected to students, it was all worth it. It was tremendous.
I want to highlight something really special that Shane just shared. That a member of his faculty felt safe enough raising their concerns is one of the strongest indicators of a culture of safety. It's why it's so essential when you're trying to create a culture of innovation that people feel safe and feel that they can trust one another. If people don't feel safe expressing concerns, sharing ideas, and then taking risks, many ideas are going to be left unheard. When I think about the one thing that can transform the culture of teaching to accelerate innovation, it's a culture of trust. A culture where teachers are trusted to do what they know is best for kids. Like Shane mentions, many struggle with autonomy. It's another theme that emerged from the interviews that I did while doing my research around design thinking at Design 39 campus in San Diego. We're all great at something, but we can't be great at everything. And we can't and we shouldn't ask teachers to innovate alone. It's why I go back to re-examining our practices and how we're working. It's these very complex challenges, especially around collaboration and time, that design thinking is really here to help us solve for. And that's what Shane did. And that's when you start to hear the stories like the one he shared about how the global citizenship course came into being. Shane's vision for the district is a simple statement: preparing for the future today. I asked him to share how this vision came to be and what it looks like in practice.
I think it really gets back to what we had talked about earlier. If we have this problem or opportunity we want to create, let's not stand around and just talk about it for a long time. We need to take action because every day is an opportunity to make an impact with our students. And so, I'm never one to sit back and like, hey, let's plan a course that's going to impact students in 2 years when we can impact them next year, or we can impact them this next semester. And so I think that embodies, and people in the organization realize the impact that we have. And so when you see preparing for the future today, why not today? And it's something as simple as, and I just want to reiterate, we're not perfect at all. And at the end of the day, what I really care about is providing good quality instruction on a daily basis in every classroom. Because I believe if we do that, you're making an impact every day. And so, we'll get back to what makes a good lesson. Let's talk about the components of it. So even all of these other big picture things are great, but if we have teachers in our classrooms taking that approach, I think great things are going to happen for kids. They're going to be the beneficiary of that. And so I think that that's all part of preparing for the future today. I also look at my role in that is you've got your immediate, your short term, and then you've got your long term. And in our district, I am really, really proud of our ability to address all of those. And this goes back to several years ago when I remember having a conversation with our board saying, listen, we are doing these things within the district and we can continue to get the same results, to create the same opportunities, or we can take a little bit of a risk and think differently. And so I just asked them permission to have the conversation, not to commit to anything, but to have the conversation with them, with staff, to talk about what that future should look like. And out of that, a lot of work and a lot of conversations that led to the district's One to World initiative that was really founded on a couple ideas. One of them is provide real world learning experiences for kids. And that kind of gets at the design thinking process. Project-based learning is really where, some tangibles that came out of that. We also talked about just the importance of the 4 C's to be able to be creative, think critically, communicate, and collaborate. All of those things are what we do every day, try to do every day as leaders. And so those weren't targeted lessons or conversations when we went through school. But I think that they're required now, regardless of the position, the job, whatever you do after high school. Those are really good skills to have. And so we've really tried to build a foundation around all of those. And then obviously, just access for all. We had this whole digital divide. We had people that just lacked technology, lacked access, which in turn impacted their ability to get information. And I struggled with that. And so this whole One to World initiative really provided the framework for that. And we believe it's important that our students have the opportunity to demonstrate their learning in any way they want, and to give them the tools to be able to do that. And in turn, I want our staff to do that. Hence, personal learning plans. They're doing the same exact thing. And that's really the culture that we've tried to bring, into the district. We've modeled it through One to World. Oh, and then by the way, that's what led us down to how can we do that? We're now one-to-one. We have iPads, we have MacBooks. That was a byproduct. That wasn't why we did it. Those are the things and the tools and resources we need in order to be able to do it. And I'm super proud. Little side note, we've had a couple of our students that have been innovators of the year in Pennsylvania in just a few years. Like from the creativity and solving these problems, like super proud of our kids being able to do it. We've had teams of students that have represented us at the National Robotics Competition. We just started a team 5 years ago. And I think that those are the byproduct of this kind of change and approach of what we've created here. And I'm really proud of that. In addition, I also think part of my role is not just when you talk iPads, it's facilities. And so when I think about what we provide teachers on a daily basis, the facilities are really, really important. And so over the past, 5 or 6 years, we've done something to every single one of we have 3 school buildings all on one campus. We've done something to one of the buildings that I talk about is kind of a legacy. It's going to be here well beyond us. And I want generations of our kids and family members in our community to benefit from it. And that has been our philosophy. And we just culminated the building I'm in right now is a brand new middle school, 140,000 square foot building that's just beautiful. It's not over the top, but it incorporates a lot of things that have been envisioned for students and staff, that it's really at the heart and soul of it. It's flexible. What we're doing now can be adapted for 10 years down the road. And I thought that was important to incorporate that in the design of a building. And so that's been the foundation for everything here. And I'm really proud of just the facilities that we provided to everybody. Now we just need to grow into them and start to use them. And I'm really excited to see the great things happening here. But all of those things kind of go back to preparing for the future today. So there are things that are short term. You've got, the today, the short term, and then you've got this long term potential. And all of those embody exactly, that phrase. And we just have to continue to be flexible enough to change over time. And in my tenure as superintendent, I've really seen that evolved, and I think it's not going to go away. And I'm proud of our work.
Why are we waiting? Shane highlights how he values the culture of autonomy, where teachers make choices as professionals about what they believe is going to be most impactful for their students. When interviewing the educators at Design 39 about the value of design thinking practices, autonomy was a theme that came up multiple times. In one interview they shared, Rule 33 at Phil's Coffee is hiring the right people and setting them free to do their best. And they said that because they have that culture at Design 39, that's why they're able to do what they do. They shared that there isn't anyone coming in to say things like, what standard are you working on and why isn't it on the board today? Those are the things they say that kill creativity. Instead, when admin come in, they're coming in to experience what's happening. In another interview they shared, we have a tremendous amount of freedom and trust. I've never had that before. I'm trusted that the decisions that I make are in the best interests of our students. I've never had that before. Like all the leaders you've heard on the podcast this season, they all have one deeply held belief in common, and that is the power of relationships, both online and offline. No conversation, though, is complete without asking how you see the relationship between leadership and social influence.
It's a really, really good question. And actually, I'm moderating a session at the national conference on a very similar topic. And I think it's always been important, but it's never been more important for us as leaders. And I'll even say teachers are leaders in their classroom. You've got building leaders, and then myself as a district leader, to leverage social media to tell our story. And that's how I got started, is giving people a glimpse into what school is, because school is different than when you and I went to school. And I know I'm way older than you. School is different than it was 10 years ago. And for me, I think it's important to share that story with our community. Even, I'll be honest, even from teacher to teacher in the district, we have teachers that had never been into another building or another classroom, or they've been in their same classroom for 25 years. And so we've been able to build, I think, out our social media presence with that idea of telling our story, sharing the work that we're doing, or presenting a problem, allowing kids to make some connections with people out there to help them solve a problem. We've had authors, speak to groups of kids because of something that they identified in the passion project, and they used Twitter to be able to connect to that person. And so I think that has been a really important, tool for us. And then obviously, I think it's important for us to be role models in how to just use social media. And you can go out on any, whether it's Facebook or Twitter, and you see TikTok, and you can always find, negative things. It's there. So I think that we have been able to leverage it to think responsibility. And, if something negative has happened, how you navigate through that challenge. And sometimes even modeling of not responding to something is a response. And that, I think, has been really, really important. And we also, listen, the kids now, that's part of who they are. They don't know any different than this world where they can get instant access to so many things. And now it's, TikTok and dances and, doing all of those things. And it's our job to try to understand where kids are and recognize that that's not where all the adults are, has been important. And so we try to teach digital citizenship and doing all of those things. But being a leader is the greatest responsibility. And now people have access immediately to so many things in real time that just didn't exist before. And so I think it's important that we think through that. We think how things can be portrayed and mistaken, and we have to put a lot more thought into things just because it's so quick. Even recognize that we have some students who they don't want to be on social media, so taking pictures. And so it's just a mindfulness. But I also think, to get back to the beginning, it's important that we share our story of the work that we're doing. There's been a tremendous investment in public schools from a financial aspect, and there's obviously from the federal level and now even in Pennsylvania at the state level. And I feel a responsibility to let people know this is what we're doing with it. This is how we're using that. These are the areas that we're still struggling with. And those social media tools, and again, this could be even just a blast message that goes out. We can leverage those in a variety of ways and recognize that there's no one perfect way to communicate, because there's so many different tools and you have different audience using different tools. And so to get back to, I think the influence that we have, I take very, very seriously. And I know many of my colleagues, we all do that. And so let's take advantage of the audience to share what we're doing or the challenges that we're facing. And so sometimes, people, we don't have to be the experts on anything or on everything. And we're able to connect with some people who can help us solve some problems just by reaching out. And that's evolved. There have been times that, I know me personally. So I first got involved, 5-6 years ago. And the only reason I got involved is because my friends were active on social media, and they said, why aren't you? And to be quite honest, I didn't understand it. I didn't know what to do. I felt this immense responsibility. So I didn't do it. And I was hesitant. And this goes back to taking that risk. And finally, I'm like, okay, if we want our teachers to do that, well, I need to do that. And so I took the risk, and it ended up, I was a contributor to a book called The Unlearning Leader. And this is what I talked about. I had to unlearn some things and relearn them. And I just talked about this evolution of taking that risk, of just being more active. And I've really seen the impact of that risk taking here. I look at our teachers, we have so many people that are active on social media. And here's what I love. I can't be in every classroom every day, but I can jump on Twitter and I have a pretty good sense of what's happening because of what people are posting. And sometimes our students are the class poster for the day. So they get the experience of creating content, sharing a story through their lens, through social media. And I love that.
I'm reminded of the classic Alvin Toffler quote: "The illiterate of the 21st century are not those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn." It's one of the most valuable things I've gained from having a strong social media presence, the people that I learn from. I've curated people from across industries and just being exposed to the range of bite-sized content to long-form content in all a variety of formats, from blogs to videos to reels and TikToks. I'm always learning, being provoked by questions, and making connections to the work that I do. I find this so valuable that truthfully, I wonder, how do you even stay relevant without this diverse network of people to learn from? I am curious though. So I asked Shane, as he was going through this experience, what did he have to unlearn and relearn?
The feeling that you have to be perfect, say the right thing at the right time. You don't have to be perfect. And you know what? If you make a mistake, you just make a mistake. And I'll be like, oh, sorry about that, guy. Sorry about the typo. And, that's where wish we had an edit button on Twitter. We don't, And I felt that I had to post all the time, every day. And if I didn't, I was a failure. And that's not the case. You just have to do what you're comfortable with. You establish your own parameters. You don't have to be perfect. And you had to feel comfortable with that. You had to, and you're also a little, you put yourself out there because it does create an ability for somebody to make a comment on something that you've posted. And for me, I'll give you something that happens, and I'm glad that this happens. And it's made me realize the importance of, and I'm just talking specifically about Twitter. If I like or not like a post, I will get that feedback like, hey, thanks for liking that. And I'm like, people pay attention. And so it does give me an ability to recognize things even when I'm not there. And I like that. And it also keeps me honest that I need to make sure that I'm taking the time to acknowledge things or say congratulations. And I try to do that all the time. And sometimes if people will say, well, you didn't do it, I'm like, my mistake. I just missed it. I'm sorry. I'll take care of it. And I appreciate that. And so it's created this kind of culture. And so you have to feel comfortable doing that. And you have to feel comfortable. It's okay not to be perfect. And that's not the expectation. And it's not my expectation. So I'll tell people, regardless of any other organization. And I've seen people willing to take that risk, and they may only post, 2-3 times a year. And that's fine. I don't really care. I'm glad that they took the risk. Now it's something that if they have a good experience, they might take a risk again, or they might create an opportunity for students to take a risk. And I had to unlearn that I'm going to be in control, that just that whole idea of being vulnerable, which is what you are, that it's okay. That everything's going to be fine. And it's just become a really good place. Well, I'll give you an example. Here's been a fun one. Outside of the pandemic, there once was a time that the most stressful things that we did was snow days and calls. And so I've had people that will use and leverage social media to kind of take pictures of roads and give me updates on reports. Like, that's really good stuff. You've got these, organic people that are kind of helping you get a glimpse of what's taking place out there. And it's fun, unless some people will obviously close school. You need to close school. Here's what it looks like. You need to close school and use it that way. That just never would have happened in the past. I saw somebody post this morning and I said, do you remember the days when we had calling chains? Think about that. Like, at one point we did, and now it's just so different. And we've had to embrace it. And actually it's actually helped me be a better leader by putting myself out there and getting information from people. And so that's the story I tell somebody who's hesitant to do it, that and I'll be honest, I didn't know how to do, some things. And so reach out to people and say, okay, how do we put a picture? How do you tag somebody? Is it okay to paraphrase? And all of that stuff is okay. And so once you learn that there's, many ways to do things, but I didn't know that at first. I thought there was one way to do it. And if you didn't do it that way, then people are going to laugh.
Establishing boundaries. It's such an important aspect of living in a world that's constantly vying for your attention. There are more things to do than we have hours in the day. Prioritizing, setting boundaries, and understanding what works for you is essential. Otherwise, you really begin to feel overwhelmed. I'll again emphasize how much I believe learning about your strengths, what energizes you, and then sharing that with other people you work with really transforms the culture from one where we feel overwhelmed to one where we're starting to practice collaboration in its purest form, recognizing that we're all great at something, but we can't be great at everything. As we look to preparing for the future today, I asked Shane what's currently on his mind that we should be thinking about.
I'm going to preface this with, outside of this is a given in my mind. We have to continue to provide opportunities to kids. And I can talk all day long about that. But I think there two huge issues in education, and they're both personnel. And that's we need teachers and we need leaders. And so there's a huge issue across the country with regard to availability of teachers, substitute teachers, teachers in classrooms. And Pennsylvania was at one point in time one of the biggest producers of teachers and teacher certifications in the country. And I saw a statistic recently, as short as 5-6 years ago, Pennsylvania would produce 17,000 teacher certifications. Now we're down to like 5,000 a year. And so we have openings in our district that have been open all year. And I know I have colleagues in Pennsylvania and across the country that just have openings. And we have people leaving education in droves. And so it's really important that we get some of the best and brightest people to want to teach and influence kids. And we have to foster that. And so we are absolutely at a critical stage of teachers in classrooms. And then in turn, we have to find people who want to lead them, who are willing to take that risk and to put themselves out there. And so we have to foster that pipeline and create internal opportunities for people to be safe leaders in their classroom and a building level so that we can fill the pipeline because, where teachers are leaving classrooms, so are principals and so are superintendents. And so we're at a critical stage in education to get quality people into these positions and having to think differently about the pathway to become a teacher, the pathway to become a leader. And it will have to be different. And so I know some states are working on that. Those are two huge challenges that are at the heart and soul of what we do. You need to have those so that you can create opportunities for kids in classrooms and have that influence that we want to have on kids in a positive way.
It's your turn to join the conversation by sharing what you enjoyed or what questions you have. In a world where time and attention are so valuable, thank you for choosing to listen and for being a part of our Designing Schools community. Leaving a review for the podcast helps others learn about the show, giving them the gift of knowledge and allowing this community to help create access and exposure to ideas and opportunities others may not even know exist.